Hey everybody and welcome back. In today's video, I'm going to be comparing the Onn 12.1 inch Pro to the Samsung A9 Plus. Now, basically, both of these devices are going to be tablets in the budget category, so around the $200 mark, depending on the sales and promotions. Now, I have a more detailed video of this Onn 12.1 tablet, which I purchased for myself, and I cover a variety of things like specs and things of that nature. But I do think it's important to compare devices based on specs as well as the software and usability. So in my video review of the Onn tablet, I cover the build quality, which for this device is really, really nice. There's not much flexing. It doesn't feel hollow or plasticky. It has this solid aluminum-ish feel to it. So I think this is a really, really solid device, even if this were one that you thought may not be as good as the A9 Plus. It shows that the tech has come a long way. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go ahead and jump into a quick screen share where I'm going to compare the specs side by side a bit more just to give you a general overview of what both devices look like and really why you might want to consider one over the other.
We're going to compare specs from the actual manufacturer's websites. Then afterwards, I'm going to go to a benchmark between the two CPUs to compare them. So when we look over here, we'll start with the Onn tablet. You'll see that we have 128 gigs of overall storage in the 2024 model. It has Android 14 out of the box. We have a 12.1 inch 2560 by 1600 resolution LCD touchscreen. We have the 2.2 gigahertz octa-core processor, and again, more to come on that. 6 gigs of RAM, 15 hours or up to 15 hours of battery life, 5 megapixel and 8 megapixel front and rear facing cameras respectively. You'll see we have the 4 speakers, 20-watt fast charging, and Wi-Fi 6. Now, going to the A9 Plus, so we're going to compare price first because this changes quite a bit. So I've set this just to be like a random place, I think in Colorado, and you'll see that we have it at $217. Now over here, the A9 Plus is $269.99, but again, those prices have been fluctuating based on sales. So we have the A9 Plus selected here, the 128 gig model, because I do want to compare them exactly like for like when possible. And then you'll see a couple of other overviews here, but we're going to skip all of this and basically scroll down just to specs. So looking at the specs, we have a couple of notes here. So both have Android 14. Both have what appear to be a 2.2 gigahertz processor, but again, more on that to come. You'll see that we have a couple of additional notes here. So as far as the camera, we have the 5 and 8 megapixel front and rear. And then the video recording resolution, you'll see here we have some overview on that. Now, we have microSD support in both, 128 gigs in both, and then you'll see as we continue to scroll, there's different specs overall that are listed here, but we can kind of pull up and go between the two. Now, the main selling point in the comparison for me is that we have 1920 by 1200 on the A9 Plus compared to the 2560 by 1600 in the Onn 12.1. So when we scroll through in the Walmart website, you'll see that we have the specs we can compare with the processor as well, but the bulk of the product details are kind of just listed throughout. So doing this side by side, and I'll put links to both in the description, but the general key notes that I have as kind of a takeaway are going to be the display and the size difference. So you'll see here the main display size, we have it 11-inch full rectangle, 10.9-inch rounded corners with a 1920 by 1200 compared to the 12.1-inch with a 2560 by 1600. Now, a couple of other things to note are going to be things like, for example, the camera, which we've already covered, but also noting just kind of minor things such as the colors, which are also comparable. But the main things that are key differences are going to be processor and a couple of other minor specs. So if we go to the compare option, Samsung will allow us to compare a couple of key devices. But one thing to note here, so you'll see we have the processor listed, But we also see in the internal memory section, so this 128 gig is expected to now come with 8 gigs of RAM. I believe previously it was not 8 gigs, so that is a bit of a bump up for the Samsung device, but the price I do think reflects that. So we do also have 4 speakers, slightly different setup though. And then again, you'll see right here it's saying Android 13, which should be Android 14 based on what I was just looking at. So I think it just depends on what you're comparing to, because that's the Tab A9 Plus, which is also here. So I think that's probably just an update they need to do on their website. So doing the comparison of the two, you'll see again all of the key specs and comparison between the two here. But what I've done is I've looked up this Snapdragon 695 and compared it to, when we go over to the Onn website, I've compared it to the MediaTek G99. So I have the Nano Review website pulled up here, and I'll put a link to this in the description as well, but this is comparing the Snapdragon 695 and the Helio G99. Now, I'm not sponsored by or endorsing any of the websites or products. I've not been paid by anyone for this overview. So going into the review and comparison of the two, you'll see when it comes to the kind of high-level review, there's a couple of things to note here. So this review is the main portion. So in all cases, the CPU performance, gaming performance, battery life, and nano review, the Snapdragon, which is in the A9 Plus, was ahead of the Onn 12.1 inch, which has that Helio G99. But I want to note it was by a very, very small margin, especially when it comes to battery life, which is kind of a key indicator for what my overall decision is between the two. So key differences, you'll see down here the pros of the MediaTek G99 and a couple of other things between the chips. But what I wanted to close out the video with is the kind of general reasoning behind my choice on why I chose the tablet I chose. So when it comes to the current versions, if you're getting an A9 Plus, you're going to want to make sure that you look up the specs comparing to the Onn 12.1 inch, because there's a couple of different A9 Plus models if I'm not mistaken, and you might end up with one that has less RAM or potentially a different processor. But if you're comparing the newer models that I have had access to and that I've been looking up, if I were to pick between the two, I would say if they were at the exact same price point, I would probably go with the Onn for media consumption because of the screen resolution and the screen size. So you're going to get a comparable battery life, but you're going to be able to watch movies at a higher resolution on a larger screen and just have a larger screen overall. Now, if you're looking at a device for the gaming performance and the price point that's the exact same, then I would go with the A9 Plus because you're going to get a slightly more powerful machine with more RAM in the newer model. Again, you may not have the best resolution, but I do think overall that's going to give you just a little bit more power to do what you are interested in doing. So overall, that's pretty much everything between the two. So closing out, I'll show you the price point and the price difference here. You'll see it's a minor-ish difference, but it is considerable if you look at the actual total price. So you'll see here that we have about a $42 and some change price difference between the Samsung and the Onn models. So overall, I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment box below, and I'll see you all in the next video.